What's up, everybody? Bucky Brooks here, and this is Bleav in Jags, a podcast dedicated to the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're going to talk about everything that's going on with our favorite football team, including what we can learn from week 5 to help us going into week 6 when the Jaguars take on the Chicago Bears over in London, one of 2 London games that the team has on the schedule. But before we talk about what we learned from week 5 and how we're going to get better going into week 6, let's pay off our sponsor, Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for everything football. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest. Pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of the $200,000. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. Guys, so the game in London, the game started this week. We saw last week that the Minnesota Vikings and the New York Jets played overseas, but now the Jaguars, the UK's own home team, they get to go over and take advantage of, being able to know the lay of the land, knowing the landscape, understanding travel and getting ready. It's a great opportunity for the Jags to get possibly 2. We saw last year the Jags went 2-0 overseas. Man, it'd be great if the Jags can do it all over again. But before we can get to Chicago, we want to put a bow on what happened against the Indianapolis Colts. We want to continue to talk about what we learned and how we can take those lessons and move forward before we get ready for the Bears, which should be a very, very good game against 2 teams that are very, very scrappy and competitive. So, and think about what we learned and what we want to build on. I think the number one thing that we want to build on is we want to continue to build Trevor Lawrence's confidence. And you would like to think that the number 1 overall pick, a guy who is now paid as a high-priced player, paid like the highest paid quarterback in the game, would have his confidence intact. But the struggles from the end of last season when he had injuries and the slow start to this season, he had to be feeling some kind of way coming into that game against the Indianapolis Colts. But lo and behold, the Indianapolis Colts were the perfect team for him to face based on the style of their defense with Gus Bradley and how they wanted to play zone and keep everything in front and force you to play checkdowns and those things. And how he normally plays against the Indianapolis Colts. We normally see him light up the Colts just because of the style. He has a confidence that he doesn't necessarily show against all teams, but against the Colts, he's dialed in. He knows that he can play well against them. And looking at the way that he played against the Colts, man, who wouldn't want him to duplicate that performance? 28 for 34, 371 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, passer rating over 119. Exactly the kind of production that you expect from your franchise quarterback and what we expect from him going forward if this team is not only going to climb back into the playoff race, but if they're going to be, a team that we can talk about winning the division down the line, whether it's this year or next year, he has to begin to play at that level consistently for this team to max out their opportunities. And watching the tape, what I learned in watching Trevor play against the Indianapolis Colts, he was efficient, he was patient, he was disciplined. Part of that is based on how the Indianapolis Colts force everyone to play. If you know Gus Bradley, if you know his defense, he wants to keep the ball in front. He wants to force opponents to drive the length of the field, 10 or more plays. He believes that the odds fall into the defensive favor if you can make them run more plays to score. And they want to really bog down and play really good red zone defense. When you look at the way Trevor played, he was very patient in terms of he didn't force the ball up the field. He took the check down and the underneath throw. He didn't try and make hero throws at intermediate and deep levels unless the opportunity presented himself for him to take a shot. He was willing to put the ball in the hands of his playmakers underneath and lean on them to turn 2 and 3 yard passes into 7, 8, 9, 10 yard gains. That happened over and over and over again when we think about the number of checkdowns that Travis Etienne had. I think he had 6 receptions on the day. You think about how they worked the underneath areas of coverage to Christian Kirk, found Bretton Strange a couple of times, was able to get it to the playmakers underneath and allow them to make plays. And what happened, I would say, is very similar to the way a basketball player can get hot. Being a high school basketball player, I remember my high school coach talking about, hey, let's take those form shots. Let's hit these layups. You hit the layups, and it's easier for you to hit the mid-range when they leave you open. And if you hit the layups in the mid-range, when you step out the three-point line, you can be able to knock it down from distance because you've seen the ball go in the basket a few times, and so your confidence is sky high. When you go back and you look at the game, Trevor Lawrence finally connected on those deep balls because he connected on so many short and intermediate passes early in the game that he felt like he was in rhythm. You think about knocking down 9 or 10 passes in a row, being able to feel the rhythm of the game, feel the confidence in knowing that when I drop back, I'm going to throw a completion over and over and over again. And what that led to was not only did the defense get tired of him dropping it off underneath where they get a little nosy and it creates big play opportunities, but because he was so confident delivering those underneath throws, when Brian Thomas Jr. broke open down the sideline, he delivered a teardrop. Perfect spot, right in the breadbasket. BTJ takes it in for a touchdown. We then saw later where they continue to nickel and dime, nickel and dime, nickel and dime. Christian Kirk breaks open, bang, right on point. The bigger takeaway that I'm sure Doug Peterson and Press Taylor will have with Trevor Lawrence is, hey, man, when you just stay within the confines of the offense, when you allow the offense to work for you, meaning you're going to take the check down if the other stuff isn't there, you're consistent and disciplined taking the check down. So now the defense has to make an adjustment because they get tired of seeing these backs catch these balls underneath and move the chains. Then when you get a defender out of position, you nail them and you're able to hit an intermediate throw or you push it down the field and those things. Playing that cat and mouse game really should have opened up Trevor Lawrence's eyes to how he needs to play against these other teams who may not use those same tactics, but those opportunities are still there, meaning I work the underneath areas, I take the check down, I just keep continuing to mark these completions, chalk up these completions, and then the big plays will naturally happen without me having to force it or manufacture it through a scheme and those things. If Trevor Lawrence can take that with his first 300-yard game of the season, man, this offense is going to be better for it down the line. The film also told me that the continuity of the offensive line really makes a difference. After my post-game interview with Doug Peterson, I put the headphones down and we just had a real chat about the offensive line and the offense in general. And he said, guys, it takes 5, 6, 7 games for an offensive line to develop the chemistry needed to be able to play at a high level. He talked about last year the quintet, the 5 starters didn't really play together. And so that's why it was so disjointed offensively the entire season. This year, that hasn't been the case. We've seen Cam Robinson, Ezra Cleveland, Mitch Morse, Brandon Sheriff, and Anton Harrison tried out every week. And the more that they've played, the better that they've gotten. First 3 weeks, they got better. It wasn't great. But man, the last 2 weeks, this unit has stepped up and played lights out. Trevor Lawrence was clean in the pocket. Trevor Lawrence didn't have to worry about defenders like nipping at his heels or all in his face. That's because the offensive line did a really good job of controlling the game at the line of scrimmage. And the reason why that continuity is so important is to be able to control the game, you got to have a feel for what your teammate needs in certain situations. For instance, if the opponent is executing a twist or a game where one defender works out and the other defender works in, how are we going to handle that? Well, through experience, we now don't have to communicate and say, hey, in, out, out. We now just know because we played around each other. So we played together for so long, we can finish each other's sentences. We can now just kind of make things happen without fully communicating it. But to do that, you have to have the reps. The offensive line finally are getting the reps where they're beginning to have that confidence and free-flowing nature where they don't have to communicate everything because everyone's on the same page. And when they get on the same page on the offensive line, that's when the offense has an opportunity to go from good to great, and it can go to good to great in a hurry. The last 2 weeks have been the best that we've seen the unit play. If they continue to build on that, this offense is going to be exactly what we thought it could be at the beginning of the season. Now let's talk about some of the young guys. One of the things that you hope for when you're drafting and when you're bringing young guys in and you're trying to put them in the lineup that features some old guys, that they can hold their own and they can make contributions right away, where they can earn the respect and the trust of their teammates. It has only been a few weeks, but Brian Thomas Jr. and Tank Bigsby have earned the trust of their teammates as two of the Jaguars' top playmakers. Now, I know that there's some other guys in those positions that are established, that are kind of in spots where we expect them to be mentors. But I'm going to say right now, there's not two better players playing offensive football than Brian Thomas Jr. and Tank Bigsby right now for the Jaguars. BTJ is everything that they said he would be, and maybe even more. He is as advertised as a playmaker. Smooth, fluid, explosive, natural deep threat, makes the hard look easy when it comes to catching the football. And he got some dog in him that I don't know if many people talked about. Super competitive. Love the, I would say, the competitive arrogance that he plays with. He feels like he's the man, and he carries himself like the man in the passing game. It shows up. It's obvious in the way that he plays. He doesn't blink. He doesn't bat an eye at whoever has him in a matchup. He's willing to line up and stack him and go get it. I think it shows. Tank Bigsby, second-year player, but he's really earned the respect and trust of his teammates, I would say, through the tenacity and toughness that he's displayed as a runner. This is a guy that is doing all the dirty work in between the tackles, running it inside and outside, making it happen. And he's responded by being able to break off big plays. Last 2 weeks, he's had 2 runs over 50 yards. Last week, he had a big one. Couldn't quite make it. But this week, Tank Bigsby was putting the ball in the paint. And we talk about putting the ball in the paint. This dude had over 100 yards rushing, found a way to really, really make it happen, had 2 touchdowns. And then the 65-yard touchdown when he kind of broke and got to the secondary and took the distance. To me, I was like, that is a pro run. It's a pro run, not because he went the distance from 65, but because of what he did before he got to the open field. When you look at the pros, the pros have a unique ability to get in and out of holes, minimize the contact they receive, but keep their eyes up, that they still have the ability to go the distance if the hole explodes open. Tank Bigsby is showing those things. He can be the rugged runner. He can get the short yardage stuff, but when you put him in and allow him to tote the rock, big fella can tote the rock. It's not a controversy in the running back room. Travis Etienne is still listed as the headliner, but make no mistake about it, they're beginning to create roles for the guys that are available. I'm going to say this. Tank Bigsby, his role, he's a rock'em sock'em robot. He's the guy that does the dirty work as the runner. Travis Etienne, he's the flash and dash. He's on the perimeter in the passing game. Collectively, they're a dominant player. They amount to a dominant player. They solve the issues that you have at the position, but it's not one that one player is going to do anything. By committee, they're strong, and by committee, they'll remain strong. Veteran players that you want to talk about that really stepped up in the last game, and that should help them going forward. Christian Kirk. We've been waiting on Christian Kirk to kind of step his game up and make some plays and do some stuff. 4 catches, 4 targets, 88 yards. What you like about that is, man, he's giving you a lot of bang for the buck. He's also coming through in the critical moments to make plays. We saw in overtime made a big reception, kind of extended drive to kind of do some of the things that we want to see. And he'll continue to be that guy that's the chain mover. Work underneath areas of coverage, win on third downs, find a way to separate when everything is kind of hairy. He is kind of becoming, in a way, the hybrid number one, the guy that you can lean on in certain situations. May not ring up the numbers that some of his counterparts, but very effective in terms of like making it happen in critical moments. So that's the offense. before we get to the defense, let me send a shout out to my partner, Melin Hats. So Melin Hats is my favorite hat. Like, this is one of my favorite. And one of the reasons why Melin Hat is my favorite is because when it's hot and I'm a little worried about how I'm gonna survive, I can always go to my little hydro hat. I can go to my hydro thing because this doesn't get stains on it. I won't sweat through it. It'll keep me cool. I don't have to worry about water messing it up. It allows me to be exactly who I am while wearing the hat. Melin Hats, you can check it out on the website. It's melin.com. Check out the hat. It's tough. It's durable. It's reliable. Make sure you pick it up. I swear by these hats. I take them everywhere I go. So now let's talk about the defense. Defensively, I'll say there's some good and there's some bad. The good part is I love the way the guys compete. I love how hard they play. I love that they're trying to do right and trying to understand what is being asked of them. Some of the things that we have to work on, namely, is the execution part of it. Right now, defensively, we aren't executing at a level that we expect. Right now, we're ranked near the bottom of the league in so many categories that are really critical to being able to win. Scoring defense, third down, like just so many different things. We're surrendering too many yards, all of that. And so it makes it hard to buy into us being an elite level squad when we're not playing elite on defense. And even though we say, hey, we concede yards, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter until it does. It doesn't matter until you can't control the game from the line of scrimmage. And so when I think about the defense and the fact that we're down in the bottom of the league in scoring, down near the bottom in rushing defense, down near the bottom in terms of takeaways. We may be at the bottom of takeaways. Man, it's hard to be a good defense if you don't get takeaways, if you don't stop the run, you don't eliminate the big plays. So I say all that to say, look, the unit was good up until Buffalo, and Buffalo just picked a scab that we haven't been able to heal up. And we got to figure out a way to go forward to get this team, this unit better. Two areas of improvement that need to happen: communication, execution. Communication is huge because we have guys that are missing because they're not communicated with, whether it's the back end community with the second level community with the third level, whatever that is, we're not getting it done. And when you don't get the communication right, you can have these epic mistakes that lead to touchdowns. What we're seeing is a ton of mistakes that are leading to big plays for the opposition. We're busting coverages. We busted 2 coverages down the stretch last week. Like that really hurt us. Allow big plays, balls to fly overhead. We don't have a clear understanding of what we're doing. To me, that's a real issue. When I come down to why we're struggling, why are we having so many busts? Why is it such an issue in the back end? Simple. It's youth and inexperience. When you have a young team, you don't have a lot of experience. And when you have an older team that hasn't played a lot of ball, you don't have any experience. So where does the leadership come from? Does the leadership come from internal? Does it come external? Does it come outside? If it comes from the inside, who's the guy that is worthy of being able to step up in front of the team and not blink? Well, it's only a handful of guys that can do that. Josh Allen is one. He can talk to the team because he has pelts on the wall. He cares about it. He has pedigree. He can do the talk. Some new guys, they can't talk yet because they haven't earned the trust of their teammates and coaches. So right now, I would say that we got to have a real conversation with one of the best guys in the business about where we can get going. And so we think about Josh Allen and what he's able to do and what he brings to the team. Well, he and Trayvon Walker are part of a 3-man rotation that dominate opponents off the edge. And when you think about what he's able to do in using these 4-man rushes, you have Gus Bradley trying to win with Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen going to work on opposite sides. Imagine how good they could be if they worked on the same side. Imagine how good they could be if we mixed in and incorporated some stunts in games to make life miserable for coordinators who are trying to sneak it off and figure it out. When we get that part fixed, we got to have some contributions from the defensive line. But right now, man, we just don't have many guys from the D-line that can kind of help us. That's an issue. But the guy who can help us when it comes to that part of it is Ventura Miller at the second level, not being able to help at the first level, but at the second level, he can help. The reason why: instincts, awareness, toughness, speed, sideline to sideline menace, loves it and loves sticking his face in the fan. We'll do it again and again and again. Just trying to stay on top of all of it. When I think about, them trying to upgrade the defense and Ventura Miller maybe fighting to get on the field after a really solid 2-game audition, he'd be a difference maker because he's an alpha dog, great communicator, excellent tackler. The things that he does on the field, they're contagious. Being able to get after it and kind of take it up a notch, get that intensity up, you love that. But where does it leave us when it comes to the secondary? Well, when I look at the secondary, a few things stand out: youth and inexperience, and then I'm going to throw in newbies. So youth, inexperience, and newbies. And when we go back and we think about the issues that we're having, a lot of times we have guys running scot-free because we haven't picked them up. The reason why we haven't picked up guys is because we're really having a tough time understanding the nuances of the coverages and the zone stuff that we're doing. How long can we continue to stay with that before we have to make a change and say, hey, we're back to man-to-man? That's the tough part of all of it. Do we want to switch out from the things that we've been doing the entire training camp to maybe give ourselves a chance to better succeed long-term by removing some of the lab work, some of the other stuff, the distractions? Can we simplify and cut down the menu to allow the young guys to play fast? Can we also designate someone in the back end to be the traffic cop, the one communicator that trumps everybody? Is that Andre Cisco being able to make calls and trump everybody out their calls so everyone's on the same page? Whoever we decide it's going to be, there has to be one voice and one voice only telling everyone how to get lined up, because you have no shot if you don't get lined up correctly. The other thing that prevents you from having a shot, if you don't understand your assignment and what's being asked of you, got to know what to do, got to know when to do it and how to do it. That's all on us, but it's really on you to make sure you ask us how to get that right before we play. That's it. Then when I think about like the last little bit of the defense that I feel like we really have to work on, one, got to find a way to produce turnovers. And so turnovers come in bunches. You got to continue to be consistent in terms of what you do when the guy gets the ball. Do you go after it? Do you attack it in a few different ways? If you're a runner, do you protect it? 2 hands right up under the chin, 1 hand, hand locked behind it. Like however you choose to go about it, you got to make sure that you're on the same page. The defensive backfield is not on the same page. One or few things are at play. It's not being taught right. It hasn't been taught correctly. It must get fixed because someone's in the middle. It's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be an interesting one because when we talk about the defensive backfield and what we're playing with, Buster Brown, Jerry Jones, Darnell Savage, Antonio Johnson, talking about young players. Now, Savage has been a little older, but like young team. So you got to meet them where they are. You got to continue to work with them, whether they transition from man-to-man to zone or zone to man-to-man. You got to work with them to make sure that they have a competent toolbox to be able to do whatever is asked. When I think about how it ties together, this defense wants to operate with a 4-man front, creating pressure. Think about the bigs and the size of the players that were signed, and mix in guys on the second level that are tweeners, that are fast, that are go-getters. Whether they play real linebacker or not, if they're fast and go-getters, it can be problematic. And the Jaguars need the go-getters to be on the field to give them the best chance to get out of this little funny little thing that we're seeing on defense. Because if the young guys play, Buster Brown keeps playing like he's playing, if the other guys, Jerry Jones, can step up his game and still get solid games from Savage and Johnson, well, then the secondary can dictate the turns and begin to maybe change the way that others have to attack it, because you can't just assume that they're not going to be able to lock up a man-to-man and do it. Anyway, when we think about the Bears and how the Bears want to play, all effort, all energy, all hustle. They want to outwork you. They want to outlast you. They want to take it to the fourth quarter and find ways to win. They've done it a few times this year, but you got to make sure that they don't get loose. If they can be corralled and neutralized, and you don't allow them to feed off of the big crowd, the energy then flips, because now it's like, oh no, here we go again. But we'll see if the Jags can continue to make these improvements, if they can improve upon a defense that really needs to lean on a four-man rush, that really needs the secondary to hold up and to handle the adjustments. We'll see if they can make quick switches to get more speed on the field at Mike linebacker. Seems like a lot, but it's easy to do, and the Jenga pieces fit if we can get the pieces of the puzzle together. Interesting time to look at our squad, because they can get their second win, and it won't take much for them to be able to do it. Before we go, let me make sure I shout out Chera Bundy. Chera Bundy is, man, it's my recovery drink. It's everything that I need. Anti-inflammatory. It makes me feel good. It keeps me vibrant and looking great. It's the choice that the pros are using. 66 of 67 Power 4 teams have this somewhere in their locker room. 10 of the last 11 Super Bowl champions consuming this in their locker rooms to make sure that the players were hydrated and ready to go. And so when you think about the recovery and how much better you want to feel when you're sleeping great and you're energized and energetic, it all starts right there. Chera Bundy. Make sure you can kind of get it. You can get it at Amazon. You can get it wherever you want to get your supplements and supplies, or you also can go to cherabundy.com to get your thing. So that's the podcast for today. We talked about Trevor Lawrence, talked about the offense, talked about the defense. Got to get better, Ryan Nielsen and his defense. Got to find a way to make it happen. If they do that, man, we're going to be excited about where the Jaguars are going and how they're steadily improving and closing the gap on the competition. Until next time, make sure, before I sign off, hey, make sure you rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you check out my colleagues on Bleav Network on YouTube or Fubo. We are dropping great stuff. We're doing some collab efforts. I'm looking forward to collabing with the group from Chicago, the Windy City, the Bears, talk a little trash, talk about our teams and all that. Make sure you check that out on the stream. Go to Bleav Network to see all of that action. Until next time, I'm Bucky Brooks, and I'm out.